My mother died on July 15th, 2024. Pancreatic cancer. 17 months of chemotherapy, hospital stays, and sleepless nights. I held her hand until her last breath. 8 months later, my father gathered the family at her beach house, the house she bought with her own inheritance, the house where she taught me to watch sunsets, and announced that I was just like her. A gold digger, he said. Don't expect anything from this family. Then he handed the keys to my sister. $2.8 million. Gone. Just like that. 6 relatives watched. No one said a word. I stood there with $847 in my bank account, smiled, and said, "Congrats, Vanessa." Because I knew something none of them did. My mother had spent 2 years preparing for exactly this moment. Hi, everyone. I'm Lillian Montgomery, 28 years old. And this is the story of how my mother's secret will change everything. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. Let me tell you about my life before everything changed. I'm a third-grade teacher at Jefferson Elementary in Santa Monica. 24 students, 6 of them on the free lunch program. I make $52,000 a year, before taxes. After taxes, health insurance, and my student loan payments, I take home about $3,200 a month. My apartment is a 400-square-foot studio on the third floor of a building that hasn't been renovated since 1987. The elevator breaks down twice a month. The hot water is unpredictable. Rent is $1,850, 42% of my take-home pay. My financial advisor, if I could afford one, would probably have a heart attack. I drive a 2018 Honda Civic with 87,000 miles on it. The AC stopped working last summer. I've been meaning to fix it, but that would cost $400 I don't have. The day I'm telling you about, my bank account showed exactly $847.32. I remember the exact number because I had just paid rent and I was counting down the 14 days until my next paycheck. Here's the thing that most people don't understand. My father is Richard Montgomery, CEO of Montgomery Construction Corp. He owns 3 properties in Southern California. He's a member of the Rotary Club. He golfs with city councilmen and real estate developers. And I live in a studio apartment with a broken AC, counting pennies until payday. The last time I saw my father before that day at the beach house was at my mother's funeral. He stood at the front of the church, accepting condolences, shaking hands, playing the grieving widower. He didn't say a single word to me. Not one. I sat in the third row, not even the front row, and watched strangers hug my father while I held my mother's favorite scarf in my lap, trying not to fall apart. That was 8 months ago. And then Vanessa called. My phone rang on a Tuesday evening. I was grading spelling tests, 24 papers, red pen in hand, a cup of instant ramen cooling on my desk. The caller ID showed my sister's name, and my stomach immediately tightened. Vanessa hadn't called me in 3 weeks. Not since the funeral. Not to check in. Not to ask how I was coping. Nothing. Lily. Her voice was clipped, businesslike. No hello. No how are you. Do you have any of Mom's paperwork? Dad needs to check something. I set down my red pen. What kind of paperwork? I don't know. Legal stuff, documents, whatever Mom kept in her files. Vanessa. I tried to keep my voice steady. Are you okay? How have you been? She let out an impatient sigh. I'm busy, Lily. I've got a $4.2 million deal closing next month. You know how it is. A pause. Well, maybe you don't. I let that one slide. I'd been letting things slide my whole life. Anyway, she continued, Dad's having a family meeting this Saturday at the beach house to sort out Mom's things, her estate. You should come. Saturday? I have 2 o'clock. Don't be late. Another pause, and then she added, almost as an afterthought, I mean, it's not like you have anything to lose, right? The words hit me like a slap. It's not like you have anything to lose. My sister, who hadn't visited our mother once during her final 8 months of chemotherapy. My sister, who was too busy chasing commissions to hold Mom's hand during her last breath. My sister, who had just been featured in Malibu Living magazine's 30 Under 30 list while I was washing bedpans and sleeping on hospital chairs. She thought I had nothing to lose. "I'll be there," I said quietly. "Great. See you Saturday." She hung up without saying goodbye. I sat there for a long moment, staring at my cold ramen, wondering why I still expected anything different. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the last 18 months of my mother's life. Pancreatic cancer, stage 3 when they caught it. The doctors gave her 12 to 18 months. She lasted 17. I was there for every single one of those months. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I drove her to chemotherapy at Cedars-Sinai, a 90-minute round trip. I held her hair back when she vomited. I learned to change IV bags. I slept on a fold-out chair in her hospital room so many nights that the nurses started leaving me a spare blanket. My father? He was busy with work. He came to the hospital maybe once a week, stayed for 20 minutes, checked his phone the entire time, and left. He told everyone he was handling things at home so I could focus on Mom. Vanessa. She visited twice. Twice in 18 months. The first time, she stayed for an hour and spent most of it on her phone. The second time was the day before Mom died, and she only came because I called her, crying, telling her this was it. But here's the thing I keep coming back to. One night, about 3 weeks before she passed, Mom grabbed my hand. Her grip was weak, but her eyes were sharp, lucid. "Lily," she whispered, "I've taken care of everything for you." I thought she was confused. The morphine, the exhaustion. "Check your old email," she said. "The folder marked, 'From Mom.' Don't open it until you really need it." I nodded, not understanding. "Promise me," she insisted. "I promise, Mom." She smiled then, a real smile, and closed her eyes. I forgot about that conversation. Grief does that to you. It buries things. But sitting in my apartment that Tuesday night, Vanessa's words still ringing in my ears, I suddenly remembered. Saturday, March 1st, 2025, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I pulled up to 1847 Ocean View Lane in my Honda Civic, with the broken AC, windows down, hair a mess from the highway wind. The beach house stood against the Pacific, all white walls and floor-to-ceiling windows. My mother had bought this house in 1991 with her inheritance from my grandparents, before she even met my father. She used to tell me stories about finding it, about falling in love with the way the light hit the living room at sunset. I was 5 minutes late. The AC had finally died completely somewhere around Malibu Canyon, and I'd had to pull over to let the engine cool. When I walked through the front door, 8 pairs of eyes turned to look at me. My father sat at the head of the dining table, the same table where we'd had Thanksgiving dinners, birthday parties, where Mom and I used to do puzzles on rainy afternoons. Vanessa sat to his right, in what used to be Mom's chair. She was wearing a cream blazer and gold earrings, looking like she'd stepped out of a real estate advertisement. Aunt Patricia and Uncle Howard were there, along with my cousins Derek and Melissa. They all looked at me the way you might look at someone who'd shown up to a black tie event in sweatpants. My father didn't greet me. He just glanced at his Rolex and said, "You're late." "The car." "Sit down, Lillian." I sat at the far end of the table, the opposite end from my father, the seat furthest from everyone. As I pulled out my chair, I heard Aunt Patricia whisper to Uncle Howard, not quietly enough, "Poor Richard, having to deal with a daughter who can't even take care of herself." I pretended not to hear, but I heard. I looked around the room, at this family that had never seen me, and I thought about my mother. She had sat in this very room, at this very table, for 32 years. She had loved these people. She had cooked for them, hosted them, remembered their birthdays and anniversaries, and not one of them had visited her in the hospital. My father cleared his throat. "Now that everyone's finally here," he said, looking directly at me, "we can begin." My father stood up and the room went silent. He had that effect on people, the CEO presence, the man who was used to boardrooms and contracts and getting exactly what he wanted. In his hand, he held a set of keys. I recognized them immediately. The keychain was a small silver seashell, a gift I'd made for my mother in third grade, back when I thought macaroni art and craft store charms were the height of sophistication. Mom had kept that keychain for 23 years. Your mother is gone, my father said. His voice was steady, practiced. And now it's time to sort out her affairs. I've consulted with our family attorney, and I've made some decisions about how to handle her estate. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle over the room. This house, he continued, gesturing around us, will go to Vanessa. My sister's face lit up. Aunt Patricia nodded approvingly. Uncle Howard muttered something about smart choice. Vanessa understands real estate, my father explained. She knows how to maximize value. She'll either develop the property or sell it at the right time. Either way, it stays in capable hands. I sat very still. I didn't move. I didn't speak. Then my father turned to me. As for you, Lillian, the way he said my name, like it tasted bitter in his mouth. You're just like your mother. He shook his head slowly. A gold digger, always taking, never contributing. 32 years I supported that woman, and what did I get? A daughter who can't even afford to fix her own car. The room was silent. No one defended me. No one even looked uncomfortable. Don't expect anything from this family, my father said. You've made your choices, now live with them. He handed the keys to Vanessa. She took them with a smile, a real, genuine smile, and said, Thank you, Daddy. I won't let you down. I sat there, my hands folded in my lap, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. And then I did something that surprised even me. I looked at my sister and I said, Congrats, Vanessa. My voice didn't shake. My eyes didn't water. I stood up, picked up my purse, and walked out of that house without looking back. But in my mind, I heard my mother's voice. Check your old email. The folder marked, From Mom. I drove home in silence. No radio, no phone calls, just the sound of wind through my open windows and the hum of the highway beneath my tires. By the time I got back to my apartment, it was almost 6 o'clock. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink through my tiny window. I sat on the edge of my bed, the same bed I'd had since college, the mattress sagging in the middle, and looked around. 400 square feet, a kitchenette with a two-burner stove, a bathroom so small I could touch both walls if I stretched out my arms, a desk covered in student papers and red pens, $847 in my bank account, rent due in 2 weeks, $1,850. Paycheck arriving in 14 days, $1,600 after deductions. The math didn't work. It never worked. I looked at the photo of my mother on my nightstand. It was from my college graduation. She was beaming, her arm around my shoulders, so proud. That was before the diagnosis, before everything fell apart. Mom, I whispered to the empty room, you said you took care of everything, but I don't see how. And then I remembered. Check your old email. The folder marked, From Mom. I grabbed my laptop, fingers trembling slightly as I opened my email. I hadn't checked that old account in months. It was the one I'd had since high school, mostly full of spam and forgotten newsletter subscriptions. I scrolled through the folders on the left side of the screen. Promotions, social, updates. And there, at the bottom, a folder I'd created years ago and forgotten about. From Mom. My heart stopped. There was one email inside, sent August 15th, 2022. Subject line, For your eyes only, sweetheart. I clicked it open. The email was dated 2 years before my mother died, 2 years before the diagnosis. She had written it when she was healthy, clear-minded, thinking ahead. My darling Lily, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and something has happened that made you need help. I know you, sweetheart. You wouldn't open this unless you truly needed to. I need to tell you something important. The beach house is mine. I bought it in 1991 with the inheritance from your grandparents, 3 years before I married your father. It has always been mine, in my name alone. Your father knows this, though he's conveniently forgotten over the years. I've made a new will, a private one. I worked with an attorney named Margaret Collins. Her number is 5550147. The will is dated August 12th, 2022, witnessed by 2 people, and notarized. A copy is stored at First Coastal Bank in a safe deposit box. In that will, I left the beach house to you. Not because you need the money, Lily, but because you're the only one who understands what that house really means. You're the only one who sat with me on the porch and watched the sunset. You're the only one who remembers. Your father will try to take it. He'll try to give it to Vanessa. But the law is on your side, sweetheart. The house was never his to give. Call Margaret. She's been waiting for you. I love you more than you will ever know. Mom, I read the email 3 times. Then I read it again. My hands were shaking. Tears were streaming down my face, the first tears I'd cried since the funeral. My mother had known. She had known exactly what my father would do, and she had spent 2 years preparing for this moment. I picked up my phone and dialed the number. The phone rang twice before a woman answered. Collins Legal Services, this is Margaret. Ms. Collins? My voice cracked. My name is Lillian Montgomery. I think my mother told you about me. There was a pause, then softly. I've been waiting for your call, Lillian. Something in my chest loosened. For the first time in 8 months, I felt like someone was on my side. Your mother came to me in 2020, Margaret explained. She wanted to make sure her wishes would be honored no matter what happened. We spent 2 years getting everything in order. The will, I said. It's real? Very real. Signed August 12th, 2022. 2 witnesses, Nancy Wheeler and Robert Torres. Notarized by James Patterson, California Notary number 4521. The original is in a safe deposit box at First Coastal Bank, and I have certified copies in my office. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. Clause 3.2, Margaret continued, specifically states that the property at 1847 Ocean View Lane, Malibu, California, is transferred completely and permanently to you, Lillian Eleanor Montgomery. Your mother used your middle name to make absolutely sure there could be no confusion. My father, I said. He's already given the house to my sister. He announced it today. He can announce whatever he wants. He doesn't have the legal authority to transfer property that doesn't belong to him. Margaret's voice was calm, professional, but I could hear the steel underneath. However, we need to move quickly. If they try to file paperwork before we assert your claim, things could get complicated. How quickly? I've heard they've scheduled an appraiser for next week. We need to act before then. My mind was racing. What do I need to do? Can you come to my office tomorrow? We have a lot to discuss. Okay, everyone, the story is really heating up now. Lily just found out her mother left her a secret will, and her father has no idea. If you were in Lily's shoes, what would you do? Would you confront your father directly, or would you handle it quietly through the lawyers? Drop your answer in the comments. I want to know what you think. And if you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps the channel, and I don't want you to miss what happens next. Because trust me, it gets even crazier. Now, let's continue. The next evening, my phone rang again. This time, it wasn't a number I wanted to see. Vanessa. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I needed to hear what she had to say. Lily. Her voice was different now, sharp, suspicious. Have you been talking to anyone about the beach house? I kept my voice neutral. What do you mean? The appraiser called Dad today, said there's some kind of issue with the ownership records, something about needing to verify documentation. She paused. You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? I thought about my meeting with Margaret that morning, the stack of documents she'd shown me, The certified copies of Mom's will, the property records from the county recorder's office. I'm a third-grade teacher, Vanessa. What would I know about property records? Don't play dumb with me. Her voice turned cold. If you're trying to pull something, if you went behind Dad's back to some lawyer, I didn't go behind anyone's back. Then explain why there's suddenly a problem with the house Dad promised me. I took a slow breath. Maybe, I said carefully, the problem isn't with me. Maybe the problem is that Dad promised you something that wasn't his to promise. Silence on the other end. What is that supposed to mean? It means you should ask Dad about Mom's will, the real one. More silence. Then, if you're playing some kind of game, Lily, you're going to regret it. Dad won't let you get away with this. Neither will I. Good night, Vanessa. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. For the first time in my life, I hadn't backed down from my sister, and it felt terrifying. It also felt right. Tuesday, March 4th, 2025. Margaret Collins's office at 1200 Wilshire Boulevard. The building was modest, a 3-story professional complex with a small parking lot. Nothing flashy, nothing that screamed money. I liked that about her already. Margaret was in her mid-50s, with silver-streaked hair pulled back in a neat bun and reading glasses perched on her nose. Her office was organized, efficient, lined with legal books and framed certificates. Sit down, Lillian. She gestured to a chair across from her desk. Let me show you what we're working with. She opened a folder and spread several documents across the desk. This is your mother's will. She tapped a thick document with a blue cover. Signed August 12th, 2022. Witnessed by Nancy Wheeler and Robert Torres, both notaries in good standing. Notarized by James Patterson, California Notary number 4521. I looked at the signatures. My mother's handwriting. The familiar loops and curves I'd seen on birthday cards and grocery lists my whole life. And here, Margaret continued, pointing to a specific paragraph, is Clause 3.2. I read it aloud. The real property located at 1847 Ocean View Lane, Malibu, California, is hereby transferred completely and permanently to my eldest daughter, Lillian Eleanor Montgomery. She used your full legal name, Margaret said, including your middle name, Eleanor, after her. There's no ambiguity, no room for misinterpretation. And this supersedes the old will, the one from 2015? Completely. California law is clear. The most recent valid will takes precedence. Your father's attorney may try to challenge it, but they won't succeed. Your mother was mentally competent. The document was properly witnessed and notarized, and it was filed with the county. I stared at the papers. My mother's final gift. What happens now? Now, Margaret said, we make sure your father can't give away what isn't his. Thursday, March 6th, 2025. I was in the middle of teaching long division when my phone buzzed in my desk drawer. I ignored it. 24 third graders don't wait for personal calls. But during lunch break, I checked my voicemail. Ms. Montgomery, this is Thomas Reed from Coastal Appraisal Group. I'm handling the property assessment for 1847 Ocean View Lane in Malibu. There's been an irregularity in the ownership records, and I need to speak with you directly. Please call me back at your earliest convenience. I called him back from the teacher's lounge, my heart pounding. Ms. Montgomery, thank you for returning my call. His voice was professional, measured. I've been contracted to appraise the property at Ocean View Lane for a potential transfer. Standard procedure. We verify ownership, assess value, prepare documentation. I understand. Here's the issue. He paused. When I pulled the records from the county recorder's office, I found something unexpected. According to the filed documents, the property was transferred via a will executed by Eleanor Montgomery, effective upon her death. And the beneficiary listed isn't Richard Montgomery or Vanessa Montgomery. Another pause. It's you, Lillian Eleanor Montgomery. I closed my eyes. Hearing it from a stranger, an objective third party, made it real in a way that Margaret's documents hadn't. I've verified this 3 times, Thomas continued. The will was properly filed, properly notarized, and is legally binding. I don't know why Mr. Richard Montgomery believes he has the authority to transfer this property to anyone, but according to the official records, he doesn't. Thank you for telling me. Miss Montgomery, I'm required to report accurate information, and the accurate information is that you are the legal owner of that property. He cleared his throat. I thought you should know before the formal reading next week. Friday, March 7th, 2025, 7:30 in the evening. I was grading papers when my phone rang. The caller ID showed Dad, a contact I hadn't updated in years. Lillian. His voice was tight, controlled, the voice he used in business negotiations when things weren't going his way. We need to talk. About what? Don't play games with me. A sharp exhale. The appraiser says there's an issue with the beach house records. Something about a different will. You know something about this. I set down my red pen. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not stupid, Lillian. If you've been conspiring with some lawyer your mother hired, Mom had her own lawyer? The question hung in the air. I could almost hear him recalculating. That's not the point, he said finally. The point is, there's going to be a formal will reading next Saturday, 10 o'clock, Morrison and Associates. You need to be there. Morrison and Associates, your lawyer's office? Our family lawyer's office. David Morrison has handled our affairs for 15 years. I almost smiled. My father was so confident, so certain that his lawyer, his office, his rules would give him the advantage. I'll be there, I said. And Lillian. His voice dropped lower. Whatever you think you're doing, whatever scheme you've cooked up, it won't work. I built this family. I made the money. I make the decisions. Your mother understood that, even if she didn't always like it. Did she? What? Did Mom understand that? Or did she just let you believe she did? Silence. Saturday, 10 o'clock. Don't be late. He hung up. I sat there in the quiet of my apartment looking at the stack of ungraded papers, the photo of my mother, the laptop where her email still glowed on the screen. My father thought he was summoning me to his territory. His lawyer, his rules, his game. He had no idea that my mother had been planning this for years. The week between that phone call and the will reading was the longest of my life. 7 days, 168 hours, and every single one of them felt like walking through quicksand. Vanessa texted me 7 times. Each message was worse than the last. Monday. I know you're up to something. Dad is furious. Tuesday. You're going to embarrass yourself. Just give up now. Wednesday. That house is mine. Dad promised it to me. Thursday. You've always been jealous of me. This is pathetic. Friday. If you show up on Saturday and make a scene, I will never speak to you again. Saturday morning, 6 a.m. Last chance. Back out now and maybe Dad will forgive you. Saturday morning, 8 a.m. You're making the biggest mistake of your life. I didn't respond to any of them. Aunt Patricia called on Wednesday. Sweetheart, she said, in that condescending tone I'd heard my whole life, I know you're going through a hard time, losing your mother, struggling financially. It's understandable that you might feel desperate, but you need to know your place. Your father has worked so hard to build this family. Don't embarrass him. I thanked her for her concern and hung up. At school, my students noticed something was different. Maya, a quiet girl with braids and big brown eyes, came up to my desk during free reading time. Ms. Montgomery, are you okay? I looked at her, this 8-year-old who saw more than most adults, and I smiled. I'm going through something hard right now, Maya, but I'm going to be okay, too. My mom says when things are hard, you have to be brave even when you're scared. Your mom is very wise. That night, the night before the reading, I sat on my bed and looked at my mother's photo. I'm scared, Mom, I whispered, but I'm not going to let them erase you. I'm not going to let them win. The photo didn't answer, but somehow I felt like she heard me. Friday, March 14th, 2025, 11:47 p.m. I was almost asleep when my phone rang. Dad. I stared at the screen for 3 rings before answering. Lillian. His voice was different now, softer, almost careful. I need you to listen to me. It's almost midnight. I know, I know. A long pause. I've been thinking about tomorrow, about everything. I sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake. I know there's another will, he said. I know your mother did something behind my back, and I know you've been talking to her lawyer. I didn't confirm or deny. I just waited. Here's what I'm offering. His voice shifted back to business mode. Walk away. Don't show up tomorrow. Forget about whatever your mother put in that document, and I'll give you $50,000, cash, enough to pay off your student loans, fix your car, maybe put a down payment on a real apartment. $50,000. For a moment, just a moment, I thought about it. 50,000 would change my life. It would mean no more counting pennies, no more broken AC, no more choosing between groceries and gas. But then I did the math. Dad, I said slowly, the beach house is worth $2.8 million. You're offering me 50,000. That's 1.8% of its value. Silence. You're asking me to give up my mother's final wish. The home she bought with her own inheritance, the place where she spent her happiest days, for less than 2% of what it's worth. This isn't about percentages, Lillian. This is about family. This is about knowing your place. My place. I let the words hang in the air. You mean the place where I'm always wrong? Where I'm always less than Vanessa? Where I'm a gold digger just like my mother? I didn't mean, yes, you did. My voice was steady now, calm. You meant every word. And so did Mom, when she wrote that will. She knew exactly what you would do. And she made sure I would be protected. Lillian, I'll see you tomorrow, Dad. Good night. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were trembling, but not from fear. For the first time in my life, I had stood up to my father, and I wasn't going to back down. Saturday, March 15th, 2025, 7 o'clock in the morning. I woke up before my alarm. The sun was just starting to rise, painting my tiny apartment in shades of gold and pink. I showered, dried my hair, put on the black dress my mother had given me for my 25th birthday. Simple, elegant, the kind of dress she always said made me look like the woman you're becoming. I hadn't worn it since her funeral. I made coffee in my single-serve machine and sat at my desk, looking at my mother's email one more time. I love you more than you will ever know. At 8:30, I called Margaret. Are you ready? She asked. As ready as I'll ever be. Good. I'll arrive 15 minutes after you. We don't want them to know we're connected until the right moment. And if they challenge the will? They can challenge all they want. The law is on our side. A pause. Lillian, I've been doing this for 30 years. Your mother's will is airtight. She made sure of it. I thanked her and hung up. At 9 o'clock, I got in my Honda Civic, windows down, broken AC and all, and started the drive to Malibu. The traffic was light for a Saturday morning. I took Pacific Coast Highway, watching the ocean glitter on my left, thinking about all the times my mother and I had made the same drive together. She would always roll down the windows and breathe in the salt air, smiling like she was the happiest person in the world. I'm doing this for you, Mom, I whispered to the empty car. I'm not going to let them take what's yours. At 9:45, I pulled into the parking lot of Morrison and Associates. The building was sleek, modern, all glass and steel. My father's kind of place. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. My mother's dress, my grandmother's pearl earrings, my own steady gaze. I was ready. The conference room at Morrison and Associates was exactly what I expected. Mahogany table, leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Pacific. A room designed to intimidate. When I walked in, 12 pairs of eyes turned to look at me. My father sat at the head of the table, wearing his charcoal gray suit and his Rolex, looking every inch the CEO he was. Vanessa sat to his right, my mother's old seat, in a cream blazer and gold jewelry, her hair perfectly styled. David Morrison, the family attorney, sat to my father's left, a stack of documents in front of him. Aunt Patricia and Uncle Howard were there, along with Derek and Melissa. Two representatives from First Coastal Bank occupied seats near the middle of the table. Thomas Reed, the appraiser, sat near the window. A notary public and two people I didn't recognize, witnesses I assumed, completed the group. 12 people, 11 of whom thought I was about to be humiliated. "You're early," my father said. It wasn't a compliment. I didn't want to be late. I walked to the far end of the table and sat down, the seat directly opposite my father, the seat that put the entire room between us. Vanessa smirked. "Nice dress. Isn't that Mom's old thing?" "She gave it to me." "Figures. She always did give you her leftovers." I didn't respond. I just folded my hands on the table and waited. David Morrison cleared his throat. "If everyone's ready, we can begin." He opened his folder. "We're here today to formally address the estate of Eleanor Grace Montgomery, deceased July 15th, 2024. I have before me the last will and testament of Mrs. Montgomery, dated September 3rd, 2015. I glanced at the clock on the wall. 10:02. Margaret would be here in 13 minutes. Which designates Richard Allen Montgomery as the primary beneficiary and executor of the estate, with full authority to distribute assets as he sees fit." My father nodded, satisfied. "According to this document," Morrison continued, "Mr. Montgomery has elected to transfer the property at 1847 Ocean View Lane to his daughter Vanessa Claire Montgomery." Vanessa's smile widened, and then Thomas Reed, the appraiser, raised his hand. "I'm sorry," he said, "but there may be a problem with that." The room went quiet. David Morrison frowned. "Mr. Reed, this is a formal will reading. If you have concerns about the appraisal—" "It's not about the appraisal." Thomas Reed's voice was calm, professional. "It's about the ownership records." My father's jaw tightened. "What about them?" "When I pulled the property records from the county recorder's office, I found a discrepancy. The 2015 will you're referencing lists Mr. Montgomery as the beneficiary of the estate, but there's a more recent document on file." Vanessa's smile faltered. "What do you mean, more recent?" "A will dated August 12th, 2022, properly witnessed, properly notarized, and filed with the county. It supersedes the 2015 document." My father stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. "That's impossible. Eleanor never— She wouldn't have—" "Dad," Vanessa grabbed his arm. "Sit down. This is obviously some kind of mistake." But I could see the panic in her eyes, the same panic that was starting to spread across my father's face. "There's no mistake," Thomas said. "I verified the records 3 times. The 2022 will is legitimate." David Morrison looked like he'd swallowed something sour. "Mr. Montgomery, you never mentioned—" "Because I didn't know." My father's voice was rising now. "Eleanor never told me about any other will." The door to the conference room opened. Every head in the room turned. Margaret Collins walked in, calm and composed, carrying a leather briefcase. She was dressed in a navy blue suit, her silver-streaked hair pulled back, her expression unreadable. "Good morning," she said. "I apologize for the interruption. My name is Margaret Collins. I was Eleanor Montgomery's personal attorney from 2020 until her passing." My father's face went white. "I have here," Margaret continued, setting her briefcase on the table, "the original copy of Eleanor Montgomery's last will and testament, dated August 12, 2022, witnessed by Nancy Wheeler and Robert Torres, notarized by James Patterson, California Notary Number 4521. She opened the briefcase and pulled out a thick document with a blue cover. "And according to Clause 3.2 of this will, the property at 1847 Ocean View Lane, Malibu, California, is transferred completely and permanently to Eleanor's eldest daughter. She looked directly at me. Lillian Eleanor Montgomery. The room erupted. Okay, everyone, this is the moment we've been waiting for. Margaret just walked in with the real will, and Richard's whole plan is falling apart. Can you imagine the look on his face right now? Quick question for you. What do you think Richard is going to do next? Is he going to accept defeat, or is he going to fight? Drop your prediction in the comments. And if you're loving this story, smash that like button right now. It takes 1 second, and it really helps me out. Plus, you definitely don't want to miss what happens next, because the drama is just getting started. Let's continue. My father was shouting now. This is fraud! Lillian manipulated her mother when she was sick! Eleanor wasn't in her right mind. Margaret didn't flinch. Mr. Montgomery, this will was executed on August 12th, 2022, 2 full years before your wife was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. She was in perfect health at the time of signing. I have medical records to confirm this if you'd like to challenge it in court. She couldn't have. Eleanor would never. Eleanor could, and she did. Margaret's voice was steel wrapped in silk. She came to me because she wanted to ensure her wishes would be honored. She knew exactly what would happen after she was gone, and she took steps to protect her daughter. Vanessa stood up, her face flushed. This is insane! Dad promised me that house. I already have clients lined up. I've made commitments. Commitments to sell property you don't own? Margaret raised an eyebrow. That sounds like a problem for you, not for my client. David Morrison held up his hands. Everyone, please. Let's take a moment to review the documentation. By all means, Margaret slid the will across the table to him. You'll find everything in order. Signatures, witnesses, notarization, county filing. I've also brought certified copies from First Coastal Bank, where the original was stored. One of the bank representatives nodded. I can confirm. The document in our vault matches this copy exactly. Thomas Reed spoke up again. And the county recorder's records support this as well. As far as the state of California is concerned, Lillian Montgomery has been the legal owner of that property since July 15, 2024, the date of Eleanor Montgomery's death. The room fell silent. I looked at my father. His face had gone from red to pale. His hands were gripping the edge of the table like he might fall over without it. You, he said, staring at me. You knew. This whole time, you knew. I met his gaze. No, Dad. I didn't know. Not until you called me a gold digger and gave my inheritance to Vanessa. For a moment, no one moved. Then Vanessa turned on me, her voice shaking with fury. You planned this. You and Mom, you planned this whole thing to humiliate me. I didn't plan anything, Vanessa. Mom did. And she did it because she knew exactly how you and Dad would treat me after she was gone. That's not... We didn't... You didn't visit her once in the last 8 months of her life. My voice was quiet, but it carried through the room. Not once. I was there every day, every chemotherapy session, every night in the hospital, and you couldn't even make time for a phone call. Vanessa's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. My father found his voice. This isn't about visits. This is about what's right. That house should stay in the family. It is staying in the family, I said. It's staying with me. You don't deserve it. You've never earned anything in your life. I earned my mother's love. I stood up slowly. I earned her trust, and I earned the right to carry out her final wishes. David Morrison cleared his throat. Mr. Montgomery, I'm afraid the documentation appears to be in order. If you wish to contest the will, you'll need to file a formal challenge, but I should warn you, the grounds for overturning a properly executed will are extremely narrow. Then I'll find grounds. My father slammed his hand on the table. I'll prove she wasn't competent. I'll prove Lillian coerced her. Margaret stepped forward. Mr. Montgomery, I would strongly advise against that course of action. Your wife was examined by her physician 2 weeks before signing this will. I have a letter confirming her mental competency. Any challenge you file will not only fail, it will become a matter of public record. She let that sink in. Do you really want the Rotary Club to know you tried to steal your daughter's inheritance by accusing your dead wife of incompetence? My father went very, very still. The silence in the room was suffocating. I looked around the table, at my father, white-faced and trembling with rage, at Vanessa, mascara starting to smear as tears of frustration welled in her eyes, at Aunt Patricia and Uncle Howard, who suddenly couldn't meet my gaze, at the lawyers and bankers and witnesses who had come expecting a simple property transfer and instead witnessed the unraveling of my family's carefully constructed facade. I took a deep breath. I didn't come here for revenge, I said. My voice was steady, calm, the voice I used when explaining difficult concepts to my third graders. I came here to honor my mother's wishes. My father started to speak, but I held up my hand. Let me finish. He stopped. I think he was too shocked to do anything else. The beach house is mine. That's not my decision, it's Mom's. She bought it with her own money before she ever met you. She loved that house. She raised me in that house. And she wanted me to have it. I turned to Vanessa. I'm sorry you made promises you can't keep. I'm sorry you counted on something that wasn't yours. But that's not my fault, and it's not Mom's fault either. Then I looked at my father. Really looked at him. You called Mom a gold digger. You called me a gold digger. In front of our entire family. I paused. Mom spent 32 years loving you. She cooked your meals, raised your children, supported your business, and never once asked for recognition. And you repaid her by insulting her memory the moment she was gone. His jaw tightened, but he said nothing. I don't need you to apologize, I continued. I don't need you to understand, but I need you to know this. I will never let anyone disrespect my mother again. Not you, not Vanessa, not anyone. I picked up my purse. Margaret will handle the paperwork. The transfer should be complete within 30 days. I walked toward the door. I was almost at the door when Thomas Reed caught up with me. Ms. Montgomery. He fell into step beside me as I walked through the lobby. I just wanted to say, your mother was clearly a remarkable woman. I stopped, turned to look at him. She planned all of this years in advance, he continued. The will, the filing, the documentation. She made sure every piece was in place so that when the time came, there would be no question about her intentions. He shook his head, a small smile on his face. In 30 years of property appraisal, I've never seen anything like it. She was always thinking ahead, I said softly. Even when she was sick, she was thinking about everyone else. You should be proud. I am. He nodded and headed back toward the conference room. I pushed through the glass doors and stepped into the California sunshine. The parking lot was quiet. My Honda Civic sat in the corner, windows still down from the drive over, looking small and shabby next to the BMWs and Mercedes that filled the other spaces. I didn't care. I got in my car, put my hands on the steering wheel, and just sat there for a moment. I had done it. I had walked into my father's territory, his lawyer's office, surrounded by his family and his allies, and I had won. Not because I fought, not because I screamed or cried or begged, because my mother had loved me enough to protect me, even from beyond the grave. I drove to the beach. Not to the house. Not yet. Just to a quiet stretch of sand where I could see the waves and feel the salt air on my face. I did it, Mom, I whispered to the ocean. I did it. The fallout came faster than I expected. 3 days after the will reading, Tuesday, March 18th, 2025, my phone buzzed with a Google alert I'd set up for Vanessa's name. Old habit from when I used to track her magazine features. Malibu real estate deal falls through. After ownership. Dispute. The article didn't name names directly, but anyone in the industry would know exactly who it was about. A rising star real estate agent had promised a major client, identified only as the Hartley Group, that she could deliver a prime beachfront property as part of a $4.2 million development package. When the ownership of that property turned out to be in dispute, the deal collapsed. The Hartley Group pulled out. $4.2 million. Gone. Vanessa's commission would have been $126,000. That evening, my phone rang. Vanessa's number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I needed to hear this. You ruined my life. Her voice was raw, ragged. She'd been crying. Do you understand that? You ruined everything I've worked for. Vanessa. I was going to be somebody. I was going to make partner at the agency. And now everyone knows I promised something I couldn't deliver. You promised something that wasn't yours to promise. It should have been mine. Dad said. Dad was wrong. I kept my voice calm. And so were you. You spent the last 8 months of Mom's life chasing deals instead of saying goodbye. And now you're blaming me because your shortcuts caught up with you. Silence. Then quietly, you don't understand what it's like. The pressure, the competition. You're right, I don't. But I do understand what it's like to hold your mother's hand while she dies, and you miss that. I hung up. 2 weeks later, Saturday, March 29th, 2025, the consequences reached my father. Aunt Patricia called me. Not to apologize exactly, but close enough. Lillian, I wanted you to know that I'm sorry for what I said at the beach house, for not speaking up when your father. She trailed off. I didn't know about your mother's will. None of us did. I know. Your father is. He's not doing well. The story got around. People at the Rotary Club heard about what happened. He's been asked to step down from the gala planning committee. I wasn't surprised. My father had built his reputation on being a man of integrity, a family man, a pillar of the community. The image of him trying to steal his daughter's inheritance while insulting his dead wife didn't exactly fit that narrative. Some of his business partners have been distant, Patricia continued. There's talk. What kind of talk? The kind that hurts. Questions about his judgment, his character. She sighed. He brought this on himself, Lillian. I see that now. But he's still my brother. I understand. That night, at 11:47 p.m., exactly 2 weeks after his midnight offer of $50,000, my father called. Lillian. His voice was different, smaller. I need you to come home. We need to talk. About what? About making this right. About being a family again. I looked out my window at the city lights. Dad, do you want to talk because you're sorry or because you're embarrassed? He didn't answer. I'll think about it, I said. But I'm not coming home to help you save face. If you want to talk, it has to be real. I hung up before he could respond. I spent the next few days thinking about my father's call. Part of me, the part that had spent 28 years trying to earn his approval, wanted to believe he had changed. Wanted to believe that losing his reputation, his standing in the community, had finally made him see what he'd done wrong. But the rest of me knew better. My father wasn't sorry for hurting me. He was sorry for getting caught. He wasn't calling because he missed me. He was calling because he needed me to help repair his image. I called him back on a Wednesday evening. Dad. Lillian. Relief flooded his voice. I'm so glad you called. When can you come over? We can have dinner, talk things through. I'm not coming over. Silence. I've been thinking about what you asked, I continued, about being a family again. And I realized something. What's that? You don't want a family. You want an audience. You want people who will smile and nod and tell you you're right, no matter what you do. I took a breath. That's not who I am anymore. Lillian, if you want to have a relationship with me, it has to be different. You have to actually see me, not as a disappointment, not as someone to compare to Vanessa, just as your daughter. I do see you. No, you don't. You never have. My voice was steady. But maybe someday you will. When you're ready to try, really try, you know where to find me. Lillian, please. Goodbye, Dad. I ended the call. My hands weren't shaking this time. My heart wasn't pounding. I just felt peaceful. For the first time in my life, I had set a boundary with my father. And I had meant it. Tuesday, April 15th, 2025. 30 days after the will reading. Margaret Collins called me at 9 in the morning. "It's done," she said. "The transfer is complete. The beach house is officially yours." I drove to Malibu that afternoon. The traffic was light, the sun was shining, and for the first time in months, I rolled down my windows, not because my AC was broken, but because I wanted to feel the ocean air. When I pulled into the driveway of 1847 Ocean View Lane, I sat in my car for a long moment, just looking at the house. White walls, floor-to-ceiling windows, the same wooden porch where my mother and I used to watch the sunset. I walked up the steps, put my key in the lock, and opened the door. The house smelled like salt and memories. Everything was exactly as I remembered. The living room with its view of the Pacific, the kitchen where Mom used to make pancakes on Sunday mornings, the hallway lined with family photos. I wandered through the rooms, touching the walls, the furniture, the curtains. Every corner held a piece of my mother. And then, in her bedroom, I found it. A letter, tucked into the drawer of her nightstand. Handwritten. My name on the envelope. "My darling Lily, if you're reading this, it means you found your way here. It means you were brave enough to fight for what was right. I am so proud of you. I have always been proud of you. Not because of what you do or what you earn, but because of who you are. This house is yours now. Fill it with love. Fill it with laughter. Fill it with the life you deserve. I love you forever. Mom." I held the letter to my chest and cried. 6 months later, October 2025. I'm still a third-grade teacher at Jefferson Elementary. I still have 24 students, still grade spelling tests with a red pen, still stay late to help kids who need extra attention. Some things haven't changed. I still love my job. I still believe that teaching is one of the most important things a person can do. But other things are different now. The beach house is partially rented out. The guest cottage in the back brings in $4,500 a month in passive income. For the first time in my adult life, I'm not counting pennies until payday. I used some of that money to start something new. The Eleanor Montgomery Scholarship Fund for students at Jefferson Elementary who need financial help to pursue their dreams. We've already given out 3 scholarships, $2,000 each, to kids who remind me of myself at that age. Kids who work hard, who care about others, who deserve a chance. I still live in my studio apartment most of the time. The beach house is for weekends, for holidays, for the moments when I need to feel close to my mother. I could move into the beach house permanently. I could sell my Honda Civic and buy something with working AC. I could change everything about my life. But here's the thing I've learned. Happiness isn't about what you have. It's about knowing you have choices. My mother gave me that. Not just the house, but the freedom to decide what kind of life I want to live. And I've decided that I want to be the kind of person who helps others. The kind of person who remembers where she came from. The kind of person my mother always believed I could be. My father has called 3 times in the past 6 months. The first call was awkward. Long silences, half-finished sentences, neither of us knowing what to say. The second was slightly better. The third, last month, almost felt like a real conversation. He hasn't apologized. Not really. But he stopped trying to convince me that he was right. And maybe, for now, that's enough. Vanessa hasn't reached out at all. I heard through Aunt Patricia that she left the real estate agency and moved to San Diego. A fresh start, apparently. I hope she finds whatever she's looking for. Aunt Patricia visits me at the beach house sometimes. We sit on the porch and drink tea and talk about my mother. She tells me stories I've never heard before, about Mom as a young woman, about her dreams, about the person she was before she became a wife and mother. "She would be so proud of you," Patricia told me last time. "You know that, right?" I know. I've learned something important these past 6 months. You can love your family without letting them hurt you. You can forgive without forgetting. You can set boundaries without building walls. My mother taught me that, not in words, but in actions. She loved my father for 32 years, even when he didn't deserve it, but she also made sure I would be protected when she was gone. That's what real love looks like. I'm sitting on the porch of the beach house as I tell you this story. The sun is setting over the Pacific, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and gold. The same sunset my mother watched from this same spot for over 30 years. My father called me a gold digger. He said I was worthless. He said I would never amount to anything. But my mother knew the truth. She knew that value isn't measured in dollars or job titles or magazine features. It's measured in love, in loyalty, in showing up for the people who matter, even when it's hard. If you're watching this and you've ever felt overlooked by your family, if you've ever been the one who gives and gives while others take all the credit, I want you to know something. Your worth isn't determined by whether they see it. Your worth exists whether they acknowledge it or not. And sometimes the people who love us most find ways to protect us, even when they're no longer here to do it themselves. My mother left me a house, but more than that, she left me the courage to stand up for myself, to set boundaries, to know that I deserve better. And so do you. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. There are more stories coming, and I don't want you to miss them. Until next time, thank you so much for watching Lily's story all the way to the end. If you've ever been in a situation where your family underestimated you or treated you unfairly, I want you to know you're not alone, and you deserve to be seen for who you really are. If this story touched you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me keep making content like this. And hey, drop a comment below. Tell me, have you ever had to stand up to a family member who didn't believe in you? What happened? I read every single comment, and I'd love to hear your story. Check the description for more stories like this one, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care of yourselves.